you hold it this rotate.
नहीं वो तो है ऑटोमेटिकली चेंज होता है.
अच्छा. रोटेशन लॉक दे आपका रोटेशन लॉक दे.
Now it's coming.
No. Yeah, it's you lock the rotation.
नहीं प्रभु अनलॉक ही है.
Unlocked है.
हाँ.
See, it's telling like that. See.
कौन वेट कर रहा है?
Maybe Prem Singh Prabhu. So your orientation.
नहीं प्रभु ठीक है.
It won't do that without. It's only doing in that direction.
हाँ, but this is unlocked, right? So this is locked. This is unlocked. एक minute. This is locked. Okay, now it will go. I think.
Now it's low. See.
Lock करना है.
Okay. On live. See, it's telling like that.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so we will start with Jayarada Mother. जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
गोपी जन बल्लभ गिरिवरधारी.
Yashodanandana Vrajajanandana
यमुना तीरा वनचारी.
Yamuna Tiravanachari.
यमुना तीरा वनचारी.
Yamuna Tiravanachari.
जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate 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 Vasudevaya.
Nasta Prayeshu Bhadreshu
Nashtapranyashu Abhadreshu.
Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke.
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke.
Bhaktir Bhavati Nastiki.
Bhakti Bhavati Nashtiki.
So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 5, verse 24 and 25. So you can repeat after me. Shohankara iti pokto
Shohankara iti prokto.
Vikurvan sambhutridha
Vikurvan samabhutudha.
Vaikarikash tejasascha
Vaikarikas tejasascha.
Tamasascheti yad vidha
Tamasascheti yadvida.
Drivya Shakti Kriya Shaktir
Dravya Shakti Kriya Shakti.
Jnana Shaktir iti Prabho.
Jnana Shakti iti Prabho.
Read the synonyms. You can read after me. Saha, the very same thing.
Not the very same thing.
Ahankara, ego.
Ahankara ego.
Iti, thus.
Iti thus.
Proktaha, said.
Proktaha said.
Vikurvan, being transformed.
Vikurvan being transformed.
Samabhut, become manifested.
Samabhut became manifested.
Vridha, in three features.
Vridha in three features.
Vaikarikaha, in the mode of goodness.
Vaikarikaha in the mode of goodness.
Tejasaha, in the mode of passion.
Tejasaha in the mode of passion.
Cha, and.
Cha and
Tamasaha, in the mode of ignorance.
Tamasaha in the mode of ignorance.
Cha, also.
Cha also.
Iti, thus.
Iti thus.
Yat, what is.
Yat what is.
Vidaha, divided.
Vidya divided.
Dravya Shakti, power that involves matter.
Dravya Shakti powers that evolve matter.
Kriya Shakti, initiation that creates.
Kriya Shakti initiation that creates.
Jnana Shakti, intelligence that guides.
Jnana Shakti intelligence that guides.
Iti, thus.
Iti thus.
Prabhu, O Master.
Prabhu, O Master.
So read the translation. The self-centered materialistic ego,
The self-centered materialistic,
thus being transformed into three features,
thus being transformed into three features,
becomes known as the mode of goodness, passion and ignorance
becomes known as the modes of goodness, passion and ignorance
in three divisions,
on three divisions,
namely the power that evolve matter,
namely the powers that evolve matter,
knowledge of material creation,
knowledge of material creations,
and the intelligence that guides such materialistic activities.
and the intelligence that guides such materialistic activities.
Narada, you are quite competent to understand this.
Narada, you are quite competent to understand this.
Purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Materialistic ego, or the sense of identification with matter, is grossly self-centered, devoid of clear knowledge of the existence of God. And this self-centered egoism of the materialistic living entities is the cause of their being conditioned by the other paraphernalia and continuing their bondage of material existence. In the Bhagavad Gita, this self-centered egoism is very nicely explained in the 7th chapter, verses 24 through 27. The self-centered impersonalist, without a clear conception of the personality of Godhead, concludes in his own way that the personality of Godhead takes a material shape from his original impersonal spiritual existence for a particular mission. And this misleading conception of the Supreme Lord by the self-centered impersonalist continues, even though he is seen to be very interested in the Vedic literature, such as Brahma Sutra and other highly intellectual sources of knowledge. This ignorance of the personal feature of the Lord is due simply to ignorance of the mixture of different modes. The impersonalist thus cannot conceive the Lord's eternal spiritual form of eternal knowledge, bliss and existence. The reason is that the Lord reserves the right of not exposing himself to the non-devotee who, even after a thorough study of literature like the Bhagavad Gita, remains an impersonalist simply by obstinacy. This obstinacy is due to the action of Yog Maya, a personal energy of the Lord that acts like an aide-de-camp by covering the vision of the obstinate impersonalist. Such a bewildered human being is described as mudha or grossly ignorant because he is unable to understand the transcendental form of the Lord as being unborn and unchangeable. If the Lord takes a form or material shape from his original impersonal feature, then it means that he is born and changeable from impersonal to personal. But he is not changeable, nor does he ever take a new birth like a conditioned soul. The conditioned soul may take a form birth after birth due to his conditional existence in matter, but the self-centered impersonalist, by their gross ignorance, accept the Lord as one of them because of self-centered egoism, even after so-called advancement of knowledge in the Vedanta. The Lord, being situated in the heart of every individual living entity, knows very well the tendency of such conditioned souls in terms of past, present, and future. But the bewildered conditioned soul hardly can know him in his eternal form. By the will of the Lord, therefore, the impersonalist, even after knowing the Brahman and the Paramatma feature of the Lord, remains ignorant of his eternal personal feature as ever existent Narayan, transcendental to all material creation. The cause of such gross ignorance is constant engagement by the materialistic man in the matter of artificially increasing material demands. To realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one has to purify the material senses by devotional service. The mode of goodness or the Brahminical culture recommended in the Vedic literature is helpful to such spiritual realization, and thus the Jnana Shakti stage of the conditioned soul is comparatively better than the other two stages, namely Dravya Shakti and Kriya Shakti. The whole material civilization is manifested by a huge accumulation of materials, or in other words, raw materials for industrial purposes. And the industrial enterprise, Kriya Shakti, are all due to ignorance of spiritual life. In order to rectify this great anomaly of materialistic civilization, based on the principles of Dravya Shakti and Kriya Shakti, one has to adapt the process of devotional service of the Lord by adoption of the principles of Karma Yoga mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 9.27 as follows. Yat karoshi yat asnasi yat yuhosi dadashi yat tapashyasi kaunteya tat kurushva mad arpana. O son of Kunti, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering unto me. So, do Mangalachan praise. Om Jnanati Mirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swaya Rupam Kada Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitan Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Sadvam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padhan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinbandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Brashvanu Sute Devi Pranami Hari Priya Vancha Kalpatru Vihascha Kripa Sindhu Vyacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I seek the blessings and mercy of the Lord, Guru and all Vaishnavas, and for the purification of my heart, I will try to serve Srimad Bhagavatam today. So today we are going to discuss second canto, fifth chapter, the cause of all causes, verses 24 and 25. So just to give a little background on the chapter 5, at the beginning of the chapter 5, Narad Muni asked 6 questions to Brahmaji about the material world. So those 6 questions are: what are the symptoms of this manifest world, what it is background, how it is created, how it is conserved, under whose control is all this being done, and what are the ingredients of this material world. So far in the previous verses up to verse 19, Brahmaji has answered the first 2 questions, and from verse 21 to 35, he's answering how the material world is created. So he's explaining to Narad Muni. In this verse, Srila Prabhupada is explaining about the materialistic ego, which is an important ingredient, or I would say like the main ingredients from where the material world get manifested or created. So materialistic ego is basically like a false ego where I identify myself with the matter, me, mine, or I am the doer of everything. I everything is just around me. I am everything. So that is the false ego. So basically there are 2 kind of egos we have. One is false ego, another is eternal ego. So false ego is like, as I mentioned, I identify myself with the matter, and I in the matter in the sense like I identify like, okay, this person is black, that is white, or I have more money, this person less money. So I'm identifying myself with the matter. Whereas the eternal ego is where I'm identifying myself with the spiritual being, and I'm considering myself as a part and parcel of the God, and God is mine. So it's a mutual relation, right, on both sides. I'm considering I'm part of the God, and God is also considering that I'm part of His. So in that case, I don't have any relation to the matter because I'm connected to the spiritual God. But due to our false ego, we identify ourselves with the matter, and then we keep evolving the matter for our comfort, like how the society is progressing, right? So earlier we used to walk, then we have the bullock carts, now we have the car, we have the airplane, right? So we are just evolving the matter for our comfort, and that is just going on to make our life easy, right? And we normally do this like to create our status in the society, right? It is more of like, okay, what other people think about me. So I need to be rich, I need to have all these opulent things to be to be a successful and a happy person in this world, and have more or living comfortably. So that's where we are trying to just spend our energy involving the matter. And we have persons, right, who encourage this kind of thinking, and that also give us encouragement. Okay, I should go behind more material things, right? I will evolve it further. So this tendency comes because of our ignorance towards the existence of the God, and our relationship with Him, because we are not aware. So we just keep following or evolving the matter. But if we are aware of the existence of the Lord and devotional service toward Him, then we can use all these material activities in the service of the Lord, like the devotees do, right? They have big houses, they do home programs, we have cars, we use it for Krishna's service. So it depends on, right? If we are ignorant, we can just keep using it for our material gain. But if we know the existence of the God, have a connection, have a loving relationship with Him, then we can use all those matters in the service of the Lord. So that way we, instead of satisfying our ego, our false ego, we are satisfying the Lord. We are doing a service. And God always looks for the person who is more spiritually wealthy, right? Not materially wealthy. So He he wants to connect with the devotees, right, who is more spiritually or towards him. So in relation to that, I was reading, there is a story in Chaitanya Charitamrita, like during the Mahaprakash Leela, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was giving benedictions to his devotees, and he was just asking devotees, okay, you ask whatever you want. And at certain point, he asked his devotees to go and bring that millionaire Sridhar Kolavich. So everyone thought like he's a very poor guy, he wore torn clothes, right? He does not have a roof on his small hut. And he is like a poor, and why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is calling him millionaire. But then they realize that he is always meditating on the name of the Lord, always chanting the name of the Lord. So in the eyes of the Lord, he is a true millionaire, right? Not someone which has a lot of wealth perspective. So it's more from the spiritual perspective. He was a religious, real wealthy person. So in Bhagavad Gita, as in purport we read, the Bhagavad Gita verse 24-27, Krishna is explaining about the materialistic, egoistic person in more detail. Because they do not have the knowledge about the God, they think that the God was impersonal before, and because they have the concept of that Brahman, right? So there is just a light. So they have that concept. They think that God is impersonal, and if he has to perform any task or any leela, then he takes a form. So he converts from impersonal to personal, and then come in this world and perform the task. And so such kind of impersonalists, right? They always remain in ignorance because they do not have that concept of or understanding of that Lord has a personal form in the spiritual world. So they always think, okay, when I liberated, I will also go into that Brahma Jyoti, and then I and God will be the equal. There is no difference because I'm also light, he's also light, and we will be all same together. So they do not understand that concept of God. Okay, there is someone superior than him, and this ignorance comes also due to the ignorance of mixture of different modes of material nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. So such person, even after reading the scriptures like Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, they remain impersonalist due to their stubbornness, right? So Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that obstinacy, right? That is one of the important word here. So it's basically mean stubbornness, and then because of that, we do not understand or does not understand the essence of Bhagavad Gita, which says about like surrendering to the Lord. Therefore, the Lord does not reveal himself to such impersonalist or non-devotees. And here the stubbornness is also caused by the Yog Maya, which act as a gatekeeper and keep this such impersonalist or non-devotees out. Because God at this point does not want to connect with them. Even though all the living entities comes from the Lord to enjoy in this material world, but still depending on their consciousness, Yog Maya keeps them out so that they will not have that realization of the God. So Srila Prabhupada is calling such people as Mudha, who always remains in ignorance. So this ignorance that we have also comes in like our constant attachment with the material matter. And it keeps increasing, right? As I was mentioning that we keep evolving the matter and then making our life comfortably. So we always remain in ignorance. And we always work on under the three modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. And even if we try, we cannot come out of this on our just based on our endeavor. So we need Lord's mercy or Lord's help to come out of this. Otherwise, we will always remain in this material world. So to achieve the Supreme Lord and come out of these modes, we have to perform the devotional service to purify our senses and create detachment with the material matter. Unless it is used for Krishna's service, right? So it's not like we detach from the material, from the matter and just goes to forest, right, and meditate there. So we just redirect basically those matters to use in the service of Krishna. And mode of goodness in that sense help us achieving that our goal rather than passion or ignorance. So we have to go beyond the mode of goodness, but mode of goodness help us reaching that particular point. and cross it. So here it says the chanting the name of the Lord is the highest form of devotional service. And if we do it in the early hours, we can quickly achieve the results, because that is the early hours, right before sunrise. It's a time of mode of goodness. And if we do our rounds early, it gives us strength to run throughout the day. But if we are not able to do it, we do it later, then we feel it, right? It just days get very prolonged and we do not have that strength. And then it is also difficult to do our chanting during the day or in the evening, right? As the mode of passion and the ignorance kicks in. So we have to try to do our chanting in the early hours of the day. It's difficult initially for the devotees or the people who are coming to Krishna consciousness, but slowly we have to try. Now, there is no specific timeline for this. It varies with devotees to devotees. Some devotees can do it in a week and form a habit, but for some it could take years. So everyone has their own timeline. And we should try it, but I think we also have to respect those devotees because they are trying hard. So we should not like demotivate that even after a year you are not doing certain things. So we should always encourage them on doing things. So here Brahmaji is explaining about the materialistic ego, which is transformed into three divisions, namely Divya Shakti, Kriya Shakti, and Jnana Shakti. So just a brief about the background on these Shaktis, right? How they come into existence. So when the first Purusha avatar, right, Mahavishnu or Shirodakshai Vishnu, glances over the material nature that is called Pradhana, it impregnates the material nature with living entities who wants to enjoy separately from the Lord. And it is known as Mahatattva. So basically when the Pradhana gets impregnates with the living entities, it is renamed as Mahatattva. It is called as Mahatattva. And Mahatattva comprises of 8 things, 8 elements. So 5 are the basic elements, right? Sky, water, fire, earth, air. And we have false ego, mind, and intelligence. So when the time enters the Mahatattva, during that glance, the 3 modes of material nature, right, they get agitated, and due to that, false ego gets manifested. And so false ego is the main ingredient through which everything evolves further. And from that false ego comes this Dribya Shakti, Kriya Shakti, and Jnana Shakti. So Dribya Shakti is basically, as we read in the purport, right, power that evolve matter. So it's basically we are transforming the matter into different forms. So Drabya is like material, matter, and then we are using that power to evolve in different forms. So as we are progressing, right? So we are evolving in different forms of that matter. Kriya Shakti is knowledge of material creation, which is like we are performing action on that matter to build something. And then Jnana Shakti is the intelligence that guides such materialistic activities. So that is the intelligence on top of Divya Shakti and Kriya Shakti. So if we follow just the Divya Shakti or Kriya Shakti, right, we will always be engaged or entangled in the material world, right? Because we are always focusing on evolving the matter and for our comfort. But here the Jnana Shakti is the intelligence, and that is better than these 2 stages of Divya Shakti and Kriya Shakti, because it can guide us how to utilize these other Shaktis, right, in the service of Lord, and how we can redirect the matters for the service of the Lord. And it also gives us intelligence like to perform devotional service to the Lord. And whatever we do, we should be done as an offering to the Lord. So that's where Jnana Shakti is at a higher stage, which guides living entity and how to use the matter. So I have in this verse. So let's move on to the next one. 2.5.25. Next. up. Yeah. It will move the mouse. It will cut here. Okay. You can repeat after me. Tamasad api bhutadir.
Tamasadapi bhutadir.
Vikurvanad abunnavaha.
Vikurvanadabhunnavaha.
Tasya matra gunaha shabdo.
Tasya matra guna shabdo.
Lingam yad drishtir dishyayo.
Lingam yadrashti drishtayo.
Tamasat, from the darkness of false ego.
Tamasat, from the darkness of false ego.
Api, certainly.
Api, certainly.
Bhuta adhe, of the material elements.
Bhuta ade, of the material elements.
Vikurvanat, because of transformation.
Vikurvanat, because of transformation.
Abhut, generated.
Abhut, generated.
Navaha, the sky.
Navaha, the sky.
Tasya, its.
Tatsya, its.
Matra, subtle form.
Matra, subtle form.
Gunaha, quality.
Gunaha, quality.
Sabdaha, sound.
Shabdaha, sound.
Lingam, characteristics.
Lingam, characteristics.
Yat, as its.
Yat, as it is.
Drashtir, the seer.
Drashtir, the seer.
Drashyayo, of what is seen.
Drashyayo, of what is seen.
Translation. From the darkness of false ego, the first of the five elements, namely the sky, is generated. Its subtle form is the quality of sound, exactly as the seer is in relationship with the seen. Purport by the A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The five elements, namely sky, air, fire, water, and earth, are all but different qualities of the darkness of false ego. This means that the false ego in the sum total form of Mahatattva is generated from the marginal potency of the Lord. And due to this false ego of lording it over the material creation, ingredients are generated for the false enjoyment of the living being. The living being is practically the dominating factor over the material elements as the enjoyer, though the background is the Supreme Lord. Factually, save and accept the Lord, no one can be called the enjoyer, but the living entity falsely desires to become the enjoyer. This is the origin of false ego. When the bewildered living being desires this, the shadow elements are generated by the will of the Lord, and the living entities are allowed to run after them as after a phantasmagoria. It is said that first the Tanmatra sound is created, and then the sky. And in this verse, it is confirmed that actually it is so. But sound is the subtle form of the sky, and the distinction is like that between the seer and the seen. The sound is a representation of the actual object. As sound produced, speaking of the object, gives an idea of the description of the object. Therefore, sound is the subtle characteristic of the object. Similarly, sound representation of the Lord in terms of his characteristics is the complete form of the Lord, as was seen by Vasudev and Maharaj Dashrath, the father of Lord Krishna and Lord Ram. The sound representation of the Lord is not different from the Lord himself, because the Lord and his representation in sound are absolute knowledge. Lord Chaitanya has instructed us that in the holy name of the Lord and sound representation of the Lord, all the potencies of the Lord are invested. Thus one can immediately enjoy the association of the Lord by the pure vibration of the sound representation of his holy name. And the concept of the Lord is immediately manifested before the pure devotee. A pure devotee therefore is not aloof from the Lord even for a moment. The holy name of the Lord, as recommended in the Shastras, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, may therefore be constantly chanted by the devotee, aspiring to be constantly in touch with the Supreme Lord. One who is thus able to associate with the Lord is sure to be delivered from the darkness of the created world, which is product of false ego. Tamsi ma Jyotirgava. So in this verse, Srila Prabhupada is explaining that the 5 elements, Srila Prabhupada is explaining in the purport that 5 elements, namely earth, water, fire, sky, air, are generated from the darkness of false ego. So basically, all comes from the materialistic ego, and it all generated from there. So we all come to this material world to enjoy and having a sense of ownership from the Lord. And due to that false ego, different materials items are generated for our enjoyment. So so at certain point, like the living entities wants to enjoy separately from the Lord, and they have this kind of ego developed. Okay, while Lord be the enjoyer of everything, right? I also want to enjoy on my own, and I want to have proprietorship, right, over things. So that's where the Lord creates a separate material world, and since we have a desire to enjoy ourselves, Lord provides all the materials, right, for us for enjoyment. So it's not like Lord says, okay, you go and you do your own thing. He is still merciful. He creates his material world. He provides us all the matter. So we can, for that short period of time, we can enjoy whatever we want to do, right? And have that false claim of ownership. Okay, I own this. I own this piece of land. I own this country. I own this family, right? So all these false things going on. So as here the Lord generates different material items for our enjoyment, right? So I want to eat, he generates food. I want to smell, so smelling objects are generated. Similarly, I want to enjoy, so we have all these movies, theaters, all this coming in. So different matter objects are getting generated as we desire, right? Or to enjoy in this material world. But while enjoying in this false ego, right, where we claim that, okay, we are the ownership, we forget that the Lord is the supreme controller and he is the owner behind everything, right? Because due to our false ego, we start thinking that we own everything, but we forget that, okay, Lord is owning everything. And he is behind all the creation, right? It just not comes on its own. So Lord glances and creates this material world for us. So it's similarly like, if I give an example, like when a kid goes to a park, right, with his parents, he starts playing in the park, he goes here and there, and but parents are there just sitting on a bench on the side, right, and watching the kid. So similarly, we come to this material world and enjoying here, right, building all this houses and doing all these things, but Lord is watching from the back, right? Okay, because he is still in controller, but when a kid, right, he's building a house, a small mud house or something, he thinks that he created it, right? And he is doing everything. So that's a false ego we get generated. But at the end of the day, the kids, when they are done playing, they go back to their parents, right? For protection, they need food, they need shelter, right? So similarly, the intelligent person is one who realizes this, right? Okay, now I have played enough in this material world, and now I should realize that I have to go back home, because otherwise I'll just keep suffering. Like I have to recreate everything in my next life, and it will just goes on, right? I will have my family. I'll have the pain of born again, and I have to study all those 15, 16 years again, right? And do a job, have family, build house, car. So I have to do it everything in every life, right? So it's so much of pain. So we should realize that, okay, we should realize that we have to go back to our Supreme Father, so that we can enjoy the ultimate things that we need to enjoy, right? And not extend our stay in this material world. So this verse is explaining that how the 5 elements got created, right? So in this following verses, but this verse especially talks about how the element sky got created. That is the first element that came in. So basically, first the sounds get created, and from that the sky element get created, because sound is the subtle form of the sky. So we have the subtle form, the sky, that is sound, and from that the element sky got created. So sound is a representation of the actual object, right? So like if we call someone, right, with a sound, so that person we are referring to a particular matter or an object, right? Because that person has certain characteristics. So based on the sound, we call out like a person or a thing, right? So that sound represents that object, basically the characteristics it shows. So that way, similarly, here in this report, Srila Prabhupada is explaining, right? The sound is the representation of the Lord in the form of the holy name, and which is non-different than the Lord himself. So Lord Chaitanya has mentioned that all the potencies of the Lord are included in his holy name, and holy name is the sound representation, right? So there is no difference between the holy name and the Lord itself, as we have seen that there is no difference between the sound and the object we are calling for, right? It is just a characteristic. So similarly, by chanting the holy name, we can associate ourselves with the Lord, right? So because they are not different. And Shastras and the Puranas, right, they also mentions that, okay, we should always chant the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this sound vibration is not different than the Lord, and it can easily connect us with the Lord. So we don't have to go through all the other processes, right? Okay, do this and that, all the ritualistic activities. So we just connect to the Lord through this sound vibration. But the important part is like we should also follow the disciplic succession. So how it is coming from Krishna to our gurus, right, to us. So without following the disciplic succession, we might not go through the right path, and we might get lost, right, or we might go to a different path there. So the important part here is like we have to follow the sound vibration, but we also have to follow it through the disciplic succession, so we can go to the right destination. So the qualities of this holy name, right? So basically this is available for all the human beings. Animals cannot do it because they do not have that intelligence. So human beings, all the human beings can chant the holy name, regardless of like their class, sex, work, age, education, their background, right? Whoever it is, they all have a right to chant the holy name. But although holy name is easily available to everyone, but not everyone is able to chant, right? So for that we also need to have faith in Krishna, and then only the name, by taking the shelter of the name, we can go back to Godhead. So like as we see, right, there are a lot of people here, right? So some people like goes to movies, some goes to different enjoyment, and some comes to temple, right? So that's where. So we have to have faith in Krishna, and then only the holy name will help us. So if we do not have faith and we just chant, right, on a materialistic level, right? So it is not going to help us. So if we just follow it as a ritual, it's not going to help us. So we need to have that faith, and there is no restrictions as such in chanting the holy name. It can be chanted anytime and any situation, right? So it's not like we have to, although it's recommended to chant on beats, but we can chant it, if beats are not available, we can also chant it, right? Just like normally. But obviously we should do our 16 rounds as Prabhupada mentioned on the beats, and after that we can just chant. But the idea is to chant the holy name all the time, so that we will be connected to the Lord, because sound is the representation of the Lord. And similarly, like our movement is also started from that concept only, right? So Srila Prabhupada came to Best, he bring that sound of the holy name, and that's where the ISKCON started, right? So we started our journey. So it's very similar to that, right? What Lord Chaitanya is mentioning here, that sound is not other than the sound of the holy name is not other than the Lord. And similarly, Prabhupada used that, and then through the sound of the holy name, he connected so many non-devotees, and he changed them to devotees, right? So we have all our senior gurus and Vaishnavas, right, who are following this sound vibration. So in the last, I will read a verse from Harinam Chintamani. I like this line. It is like, Naam nache, jeev nache prem dhan, jagat nache, maya kare palayan. So it means, in the joy, the name will dance, the jiva will dance, and the treasure of love of God will dance, the whole universe will dance, and the maya will flee. So it shows like how powerful the holy name is, right? Because everyone is dancing in the holy name, and then we forget all these other materialistic things and we keep involved or absorb ourselves in the holy name and connect to the Lord. So I will end here. If anyone has any questions, or we can go. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Hare Krishna.
So you were explaining that sky is actually in which is it darkness?
Yeah, all these five elements, right? All this material world is created from the ignorance of material ego.
Yeah.
So from that, all the five element comes, right? Sky, the sequence is sky, air, and then the water, fire, ether. Yeah. But the sky gets created from the sound representation.
Yeah. I mean, in the first stanza, Srila Prabhupada said that the sky is actually based on false ego. I mean, we're talking about the subtle elements, so can I understand that a little bit more?
Yeah, so this material world, right? So it gets created from the false ego. When the Lord glances on the Pradhan, right? Mahavishnu, right? Glances. So the materialistic ego comes into picture, right? And from that materialistic ego, when it comes in contact with the time, it agitates the three mode of nature, and this three energies get created, right? Dravya Shakti, Kriya Shakti, and Jnana Shakti. And from this darkness of false ego, right? This is our representation of that material ego. The five elements gets generated. So basically, this Mahatattva is comprising, or this material world, right? It's comprising of 8 things, the 5 elements: earth, water, air, fire, ether, and then mind, intelligence, and ego, false ego. Yeah. So from that, he's telling the sequence, right? How this material world is generated. Because Brahma is explaining to Narada that in what sequence the material world got created. So in that, the sound comes first, and then the first element, sky, get created. So in this verse, they are explaining. So in the subsequent verse, it explains about the other elements. Yeah.
So Prabhu, what is the first sound? Tan mantra?
Yeah, Tan mantra.
Before the sky is created, so can we say Tan mantra is actually Om, or how do we define the first sound that is created before the sky is created?
Yeah, it's basically a representation or characteristic of that, right? Sky. So it does not have like we can say sky is an element, but sound is just a characteristic.
Right.
It's not like an element.
Right.
So that comes in, and from that the sky comes in. I don't know, do you want to explain? Yeah, it's a little bit more technical.
Yeah.
For me also, it was a little hard to understand. Yeah, but yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
So Prabhu, we understand so many things, so many instructions. That Mahamantra will take us back to Godhead. But still we are so lethargic to want to chant nicely. So how do we bring that urgency? That because you think it's nice, it's going nice, world is going nice. So why the urgency to go back to Godhead? What will we get?
So it's all like, see, we all know, right, that we see people dying, right, every day. And we also know that we will die one day. But we are in that of illusion, right? Okay, we are never going to die. So that's how we are living, right? We are enjoying, we are creating all these material elements, material things, right, for us, for enjoyment. So we don't realize. So it also depends on our previous karmas, right? Like some people can easily, or they are intelligent enough to understand it quickly, right? Okay, everyone is dying, so I don't want to follow that path. Let me chant the holy name, go back to Godhead, right? And everyone is suffering also in this material world. But for some people, it takes time, right? It's not like everyone has their own journey, right? They are flying their own plane. So it takes time for them to understand this concept. So there is a up and down for them also. So some for it just line goes up, right? They are just going high in the spiritual journey. But for some it's a up and down. So it just goes on. But I think the key part is we should be connected to the devotees and have our association. The moment we lose that association, right, we will be deviate from our path. Because then we don't know where we are going. Because if we have, let's say we have a down in the life, right, and we don't have association, then we might end up somewhere else, right, maybe in a casino or somewhere else, right. So that's where the association is important, whether up or down. And it depends, it's a journey, right, so everyone has their own thing, so sometimes it takes time. But we have to keep the association and keep chanting. So by the Lord mercy, right, one day we will also get that to taste. So only Krishna knows, right, when we'll get it, but yeah, that's how it is. So
And we can also pray to Krishna together.
yeah, that is also important, right? The mercy of the Lord, right? Otherwise, so we all come here, right? Means I was somewhere else, right? How I came in contact here, right? So that's how Krishna's plan, right? It's not like he's just suddenly mad and things happen, right? So it's all his plan, but we don't know, right? So that's where we just have to have some patience and keep doing our service.
So probably is it fair to say when obviously we do service and do the service of the temple, and then when the Lord's mercy and Srila Prabhupada's mercy come to us, obviously we get the Bhakti Lata, we get our spiritual master. So when that's where it all changes,
yes,
personally. So when once the mercy of the spiritual master, we are connected to the discipline succession, and eventually whatever we're doing, so not to them. Just do service and then pray to a spiritual master. He will take us back to God.
Yeah, I think we should not just overthink on this, right? Let's just do our service and surrender to a spiritual master, and then Krishna will take care of the rest. Means if we keep doing Krishna's work, then what he will do, right? So we just have to leave his work to him and just do our own thing and not overthink, right? Okay, am I progressing and this and that? Because that also keeps our mind engaged in different things, right? We loses our focus on that side. So that is also important.
Yeah, we should have that faith that Krishna loves us. So and it also says, right, when we take one step towards Krishna, the Lord takes 100 steps towards us. So we carry on with our service. At the same time, we should make sure we don't deviate. And Krishna will one day.
The patience and the faith is important, right? Sometimes we just lose the patience, okay, right? We tried 10 years and nothing is happening. So maybe this is not the right path for me, right?
But how many lifetimes have we spent not doing
Or maybe the very next day Krishna planned something for us, right? So we might lose one day.